So if you're working in a tech company, you probably have heard about the term technical debt several times. And why is this something that is quite commonly referred to and something that people don't tend to see with very good eyes? Let's dive in it. Technical debt is a term very often used in tech companies to refer to existing technologies that were used either to provide a solution very fast and avoid extra work, or sometimes is a solution that was implemented potentially a long time ago and has not been maintained for many years, and at a certain point it becomes a burden and something that you had to address. So why do you have to address technical debt? In general, what happens is that at a certain point, your product or parts of your product start to be a problem for the rest of the product. This can be something in the engine or in the core of the product that potentially is not allowing the product to perform to the degree that it should. Think, for example, if you purchase a new laptop and it provides very little RAM memory. This is going to be a very big inconvenience, most likely from the beginning that you purchase the laptop, or potentially on the long term after the laptop has been used maybe for 1 year or 2 years. And this tends to have with many products that have a very long life cycle, which means that many products that are out there, potentially happens with many of the products that you are using in your daily life, will have parts of that product that have been built maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago even, or even longer, and they're still part of the core of that product. This means that changing those parts in the product is typically going to be an expensive effort. So why is this technical debt there? So in many cases it can happen that sometimes it has been a shortcut that was introduced at some point and I wanted to get a quick solution without doing a very big investment on the technology behind to be able to address a certain situation. In some other cases it just has been built there and it has not been maintained or made better. But at a certain point you are going to hit a wall, and this wall basically is going to force you to have to adopt a new technology and potentially replace those old components with something new that is not working or suiting the needs of that one anymore. So one example, now think about new technologies that are coming out there. So nowadays EVs start to be a commonplace in our roads, but not a long time ago, early 2000s, EVs were still a very much of an emerging technology that was growing up. So many of the first EVs were done using shortcuts by, for example, slapping an electric engine into an existing model of a car, which is pretty much what Tesla did in the very beginning with the Roadster. Later on, what they started to do is that they started to build vehicles from the ground up that were thought out to be an electric vehicle. But nowadays you start to see other manufacturers, like the mainstream manufacturers, starting to build electric vehicles. And here there's two approaches that you can see already. There are those electric vehicles that are built just to be electric vehicles, and then there's those ones that the brand offers the same vehicle with different types of engines. There is obviously a potential fundamental technical debt that is being created here. And in this case is that if you are building a vehicle that you think that is going to be able to live with all the different technologies, potentially this is not going to be the case, because you are pretty much taking a shortcut that, hey, I have an existing vehicle, let's just change the engine, now we can offer an electric vehicle to our customers. The reality is that many of the electric vehicles are built from the ground up because structurally they need to be built in a different way. This is why most of the manufacturers are going for electric vehicles or models that are just electric vehicles. So here you can see that already now many of these companies potentially are building a technical debt for themselves by offering these kind of vehicles. And how do you solve technical debt? Well, this is a challenge that most of the companies have at some point or another. At some point or another, a company is going to be mature enough that it has a big amount of code or a big amount of technology that they will have to rethink what they do. Can they actually move on, go on and change some of the existing components or replace them by something else? Sometimes this is something that is feasible, and there are re-architecture projects that are taken within the company that are just meant to extract those components that were old, that were created, that are creating this technical debt at this point, and replace them by new ones. But in many cases what happens is that companies perceive technology as the thing that you had to do one time and hopefully you forget for the next 10 years. And that's a perception that happens very often within the companies, even tech companies. This means that the underlying technology is just done one time and then forgotten, and then at some point it's going to unavoidably become a technical debt. Instead of building technologies as products that are evolving over time. Of course, this requires a lot of investment to be able to have this kind of mentality and be able to drive this kind of technology and innovation and research all the time. Then there's also funny situation when products have a relatively old core and most of the parts of that core have a very heavy technical debt. In these kind of situations, companies had to do a very big assessment on, is it a re-architecture a feasible solution? Or do I have to try something new? Trying something new can mean many things. Trying something new can mean build a product from the ground up. This is many times by many companies seen not as a very risky thing, because how do you transition existing customers from an existing product to a new product? And why build a product with exactly the same value proposition as the one that you had? But the reality is that there's so much shortcomings in the previous one that the lifespan of that one might be very difficult to maintain, and somebody else might come and do something better than what you're offering at this point. The other solution is try to see how can you bridge both worlds. Is there a way that you don't necessarily have to do a re-architecture of your whole old product, but you can start building the compatibility to new products that are outside of the old product and potentially start to transition your customers to those new offerings and building something that is compatible with the previous one. This is going to be always a difficult decision and it's going to require a very good study and business case, pitch deck, whatever you want to call it, business plan that is going to help you to make that decision. Where do I want to put the investment? Where do I want to put my effort? Where do I see the risk? And how long do I think that I can continue with the technology that I have at this point? If you're working in a tech company, if you have heard about technical debt, most likely you have heard about Agile. Agile also has sometimes its pitfalls, and many times companies fail to implement Agile. Agile should help companies not having technical debt to a certain degree. Agile should help companies to continuously improve on the ways that they are working. If you are interested in hearing more about Agile, I'll link a video here. So where are you in your company? What is the level of technical debt that you have? Are you in a company that is starting a product from scratch? Do you see already potential problems in that product at this point, or are you working with products that have been around for quite many years and potentially have some technical debt in them? Comment below and let us know. I will see you in the next video, and remember, stay safe.